So, graduation you had public administration, or all of you have post graduation, public administration, post graduation. So, out of this, all 5 students, and how many of you had public administration in your graduation? You. So the rest of you do not have a background in. How many of you are from social? No, you have a background in social science, humanities. The rest of you are from non-engineers. Let's say it's not non-social science, but still you are engineers. Might be some exceptions. People from medicine or something like that might be there. Okay. So see, today you'll be having a brief interactive session. So let's not make it a very monologic one. So let's make it more dialogic. You will not be taught anything for this initial couple of classes. We'll have mere interaction today. Tomorrow you will have a small orientation session. Now, before you are introduced into the, the actual academic class, a few initial classes we will be taking. Before, not necessarily. But if you take into account the students of, let's say, physics, chemistry, or let's say engineering, or many other pure science and applied science students, for them 2 plus 2 is always 4. So that means they're amazingly good students with having a type of background that defines their, we can say, the outlook and understanding, because that makes things almost in a set format. It defines for them things in a very rigid format. So for the social science, because public administration is a social science, it is it carries many of the similarities with other humanities subjects. So that is why here in this particular subject, we need to have that type of flexibility in understanding. I would not say a very analytical mindset that as such will be requiring, but some sort of flexibility in mindset, some sort of malleability in the mindset. Slightly we have to move away from that very rigid mathematical outline. So that is why a couple of initial classes you will be having, I would say, this some general orientation classes, these interactive sessions will be there. So we'll be introduced into some basic things, not necessarily the topical things, because syllabus typically some topical things are there, like what is meaning, nature, scope of public administration, certain terms, or when we talk about thinkers or administrative thinkers, we'll be talking about some theories. A number of these things we'll be taking up for our discussion. So in this initial classes will not be taking up anything typically from your syllabus. So few initial orientations will be there. But today, let me have, as I told, an interactive session trying to address most of your queries, or a few things might be going on with you in terms of, let's say, this optional paper in particular. So I'd be happy to address those questions. And I will also bring about our strategy with regard to how we are going to help you prepare for this paper. What are the things that you will be requiring, how you have to go about it, what should be the basic attitude and the aptitude that you should be carrying while dealing with this particular optional paper. Now, before you start asking your queries, before you come up with your own, let's say, questions, to begin with, let me introduce few basic things about these optional papers. From my side, let me come up with some few basic things. Subsequent to that, it will be all of you will be welcome to ask questions, clarify things, few anxieties or might be there, so I'll be addressing to those. See, first of all, the first thing that I would like to share is that as far as this optional paper is concerned, for a very long period of time, when I was appearing, that was towards the 90s, second half of the 90s and the early 20th century, 21st century. That was the period when I was appearing. And subsequently, since the time I have been teaching, the number of students that I have interacted, I have gone through, then my friends, and subsequent to that, my students. One thing I have observed, this is one subject, this is one optional subject, which students with a variety of background appear, very less number of students with the same academic background would be there. Yet, this has been one of the most successful optional paper in UPSC. Although we have to take out a couple of years, if you take into account 2014, precisely the academic, the batch 2013, the notification that came up. So thereby 2014, 2015 and 2016. If you in fact erase these 3 particular years, you'll find this optional paper has been not only one of the most popular optional paper, but in terms of success, that means not percentage, because this paper has attracted large number of students. So in terms of volume of selection, public administration has been one of the most successful optional paper. In fact, let me share few of the ideas with some of the first-hand experience that I had. Say 2000, technically from late 2004 I started teaching. In terms of the academic background, I am a student of political science. I belong to Delhi University. So academically, by certificate, I am a student of political science. And typically, more specifically, I am a student of public administration, because Delhi University does not provide separate certificate course in public administration. So we have something like in post-graduation, the first year will be common papers to all. In the second year, the MA final, post-graduation final, you have to choose your areas of specialization. So my area of specialization was public administration. In terms of, if you go by the the academic background, that's what I'm saying. By certificate, I'm a student of political science, because the Delhi University awards that certificate, Masters in Political Science. Subsequent to that, my research, whether I went for my MPhil, my PhD, although I did not complete my PhD for certain reasons, although I was one of the topper right from post-graduation itself of the Delhi University. I was a junior research fellow, and then I became senior research fellow. My topics of specialization were public administration, but again I will say by certificate it was political science. So this has been my academic background. I started, although my head of the department, who happened to my supervisor, he was very keen for me to join the university, but somehow I chose this, and from late 2004 I have been teaching, and I had the privilege of teaching thousands of students, from particularly, if I have to fondly remember, from precisely 2007 onwards, even till 2015, almost every year I had the privilege of teaching, every year, around 4,000 students. That used to be the volume of students that I used to teach in public administration every year. And 2013 I remember very fondly, and also almost that is an extreme experience, because that is the year when the final selection, the total, the list as per the UPSC result was, if I remember correctly, it was 957. And public administration, students with the optional paper public administration, if I again remember correctly, that was 436. That means you keep public administration on one side and rest all academic, all the optionals on the other side. That was the popularity and the success of public administration that used to be. And that year, if I have to, because we are very bad, we used to be very bad in record keeping. And again, if I could recollect what we could actually gather the same year, it was roughly more than 300 students that I had in the final list. And why I'm saying, sharing these things, because those then also I used to, the first question that I used to ask is, how many of you have an academic background in political science or public administration? Because political science being the mother discipline, there is some, you have some sort of overlapping. That is why when two optionals were allowed, UPSC restricts certain options to be taken simultaneously. You cannot take public administration along with political science, or public administration with the management science, because there is a lot of overlapping between certain optional papers, subjects. So, for a very long period of time, right from the beginning, I used to ask. And see, today, I believe the percentage of students in this class is very, very high as far as the students with a background in this optional paper to the number of students who are going to appear. Then I remember in the entire, because if I calculate the entire the batch of, because right from the morning till the evening, almost 4 sessions I used to take, and in that roughly around more than maybe 2,300, 2,500 students, I used to ask, how many of you have a background in public administration? So I can count in my fingers. In the entire batch of, let's say in a single batch, when if you take into account within that, in the entire session, 4 sessions, possibly 10, 15 students used to have this particular subject as their academic background. That means the rest all used to be from engineering, medicine, commerce, law, simple pure science, let's say physics, chemistry or biology, etc., all this. And at the same time, if you take into account the selections used to be huge in number. The quantum of people getting through the civil service with this optional paper used to be very high, and precisely because of that, I believe so, maybe when your pattern changed, Only one optional paper was allowed. By that time, public administration has acquired such a huge size and the nature of the syllabus that was there. So possibly, I think, possibly it was a belief that public administration might become informally the compulsory optional paper. And the name will be optional, but informally it might become. So we did see same year when this huge result was there. In the subsequent session, we did see horrible results because the questions were horrible, the marking was horrible. I still remember many of our students who used to score out of 600 then 350, 360, 370, this type of range of marks. They did get in the subsequent, if they had not qualified, they did get out of 500, something like, because next was 500. Some very horrible marks like 90, 95. I have witnessed those marks, and I still stand with, even if it is going online, I still stand. It was very irresponsible marking, and possibly I believe that because students, because students choose optional papers based on number of factors, they should not have been penalized simply on the basis that this has become too big or something like that, or whatever that might be. But having said so, this 14, 15, 16, barring these 3 years, this optional paper not only has been very popular, very successful, and thankfully from last couple of years, at least consecutive 4 years, questions has been simple, marks are very good, and also if you look into the gadget, UPSC comes out with the annual gadget, all of you should go through that. Every student should go through that, because only when you go through this gadget, you will get a somewhat correct assessment of what is actually the fact. Because most of us are seriously in this era of digital, we say digital age, there is more of information. No, there is more of misinformation. The digital era is the era of misinformation, because there is this is the era where you can control and channelize information, and the information is the commodity that is bought and sold. That's what you will also study in your e-governance. So that is why it is very important to be very much aware and very much, you should be very keen in accessing the right material to understand the reality, because that's what we will also study later on. In postmodernism, Tom, at this point of time, I don't want to use some technical terms that might confuse any one of you. No, we say current era is the era of modernization. All of you know modernization, modern era. Today we are saying we are in a post-modern era. Beyond that, so there is a term called hyper-reality. Postmodern era is characterized with something called hyper-reality. Hyper-reality means thinning of reality. Now it is interesting to understand what is thinning of reality. That means, it simply means reality is not necessarily what is. Like let's say, there is certain things. So we generally say what? That is what is real? No. Real is something that can be reproduced. That means, again let me clarify, that's what I'm saying. I'm afraid of using right from the beginning certain terms that might actually appear difficult, although they are not difficult. Like let's say, for example, we have certain ideas in our mind relating to X, Y, Z, whether politics, society, or anything. We carry certain ideas or not. For us, certain things are real. That's what we carry in our mind. For us, we believe this is what is the fact, this is what is the reality. Where from we gather this? Where from this reality in our mind is created? Because there are certain channels, there are certain medium through which we consume information. And today we consume information not necessarily through direct senses. Most of this reality in our mind is through certain medium, whether it is print, visual, digital. Through this medium only we consume. So reality for us is created through this medium. So if at all, let's say there is a fellow who is honest, in reality for us that fellow might turn out to be somewhat dishonest, because we consume through, let's say, television, through digital media, or through something else, something dishonest about that individual. So we, in our mind about a politician, it is created, this is X, this is Y, this is Pappu, this is this. Reality might be so, may not be so. But for us something becomes real. Why? Because something is reproduced. So whether something is existing, if that is not reproduced, for us it is not real. So today in this world, what we say, mega world or big world, in big world accessing information is a difficult. No, it's a very difficult, because we are too busy in our life. Even if we are going through a metro, but we are so consumed with our let's say engagements, because I have to rush back, I have to revise this or do that, I have to reach here. So while commuting also we are not observant, we can't be. So almost everything to us, whatever is created in our mind about politics, in our neighborhood, everything about our neighbor, our friends, our let's say cricket players, politicians, economists, let's say anything. For us the reality is something is reproduced, then only that becomes a reality for us. So coming back to what I was actually referring, in this postmodern era, it is not an era of overload of information, it's an overload of misinformation, because in the postmodern era, information is a commodity. So thereby any commodity is always what? Controlled, because commodity is valuable. So moment it is valuable, there are people to control it. So it will be channelized. So that is why it is very important that if we want to understand what exactly is real, what exactly is unreal, what exactly is fact, what exactly is myth, then we need to access certain things. We have to take effort to access certain things that is more reliable. So for us, that's why I'm saying that you should go through, people in civil service who are aspiring to become civil servants, they should go through at least one document that I would say, the gadget. The Union Public Service Commission comes out with gadget, its annual report, it publishes its annual report. All of you should go through that, because through that you'll get much better picture of few things. Like simple thing, which optionals, how many people are appearing, what is the actual success rate, because most of the time we look into, okay, 1, 2, 3 and all this thing, we make our opinion. Today, as far as your optional paper is concerned, following this last couple of years again, among almost all the popular optional papers, popular, I'm talking about popular because there are certain optional papers not so popular, so percentage is very high because appearance is low. Number of people appearing is low, that's why percentage is high. I'm talking about optional paper which are popular, where some voluminous students are appearing. So if you take into account, I will not name the optional papers, it may not be right for me, it is for you to go and access those things. Of almost all the popular optional papers where some substantial, sizable students are appearing, the percentage of students who are succeeding with this optional paper stands today at highest. That means most number of students in terms of success are there from this optional paper, subsequent to, if you take into account from 17 onwards again. Prior to that, in terms of volume, it used to be huge. 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, it used to be almost, you keep all the optionals together, the number of students who have succeeded, and public administration on one side. Not because public administration students were doing so wonderfully well. Yes, they used to do something good, but the appearance in public administration was enormous. So then also I used to warn my students, Okay, because you are too fascinated, okay, in top 10, PUBAD has this number of students. You are only looking at students who are succeeding. You are not looking at the huge number of students who have flunked. So if you want to succeed, you need to see those students who have flunked. Then you will become more careful. And today, I would actually shift this to another aspect, that if you look into the number of students who are succeeding, of all the popular students, the number of students who are succeeding with this optional paper stands highest almost. If you take into a few optional papers are very popular in UPSC, 5-6 optional papers. If you look into these optional papers and the data, you'll find from this the success rate is very high. This is one thing. Along with this, one more thing I want to suggest. No, not suggest, share. Most of the time, the very first question the student asks, that I do not have a background in public administration, whether I will be able to manage this paper or not. I think that is why I was sharing this data. Precisely that is the reason why I was sharing this data. This optional paper has been a very popular optional paper with huge number of students appearing and rarely students. Now it is an exception that at least few people with some background are there. Out of 100, maybe one having a background. Out of 1,000, maybe something around roughly 10, 15, 10 something. That's what I'm saying. In the entire, in a single session, in this 4 then I still remember it was roughly around 2,000, 2,500 students. Out of that, 15, 20 used to be the students having the background, and rest all without background, and with the type of result public administration used to have. So that is why background is not going to be any hindrance with this optional paper. Zero hindrance, no hindrance. Now, in addition to this, one more thing I would like to share before you can start putting questions. See, this optional paper, it is both the aspect, the theoretical aspect as well as the practical aspect. If you take into account its paper 1, it is a theoretical paper, and paper 2 is more an application based. Basically, it is about Indian administration, the government of India. We have central government, we have state government, we have local governments, the structure of this government, the issues these governments are facing, some of the related aspects to this. So this paper 2 is all about your Indian administration, the administration that is there in the Indian context. The paper 1 is a theoretical paper. Now, public administration has a very small theoretical core, primarily shared by 4 to 5 chapters. Your administrative thinker, there is a chapter titled Administrative Thinker, Introduction. Even there is a chapter named Administrative Behavior. And there are few other chapters like, let's say, Comparative Public Administration, Development Administration. So these are few chapters, those hold the theoretical heart. And theory-wise, these are actually the heart of the theory. And just small, that's what I will say, it's a small core. So if you're able to understand this few chapters so well, the entire public administration is going to be a cakewalk. So you need to be very careful, and you need to develop a good understanding on these few chapters. I don't say other chapters, because see, marks from every chapter is equally important. It will be counted. 1 mark, whether it's coming from Indian administration, whether it's coming from chapter X or Y, it will be counted as what? 1. But why I am saying it is important? It's very important because that will give you foundation, the required clarity, and once you have the understanding, a clear understanding of these few chapters, then rest all papers, rest all chapters are going to be a cakewalk. So that is why you have to be very careful on these few chapters. You have to be very careful on these very few chapters, because these chapters, it has a very oxymoronic character. Oxymoronic is mutually contradictory character. It is easy to understand provided you access it, you try to handle it properly. It's very easy to. I believe, personally I believe, since I used to love theory right from my college days, theory is the most interesting part of the entire study, though generally we have a different understanding. But believe me, theory is going to be the most interesting part. And it is easy to understand provided you handle it properly. It's something like a sword. Typical sword, all of you have seen, must have seen. How many sides it has? A sword has how many sides? One side? I think traditionally, typical sword has two sides. Both the sides, two sides. One side is sharpened. So if you put your hand on that side, is going to hurt or not? But if you are putting your hand on the other side, is going to be very comforting. So almost similarly, if you know what is the right side and how to handle it, theory is like a sword. If you are handling it wrongly, it's going to make your life hell. And if you are handling it rightly, you will find it is very easy, and you will be amused why people are afraid of this. जैसे बोलते हैं ना कभी-कभी ना, at times people say कि this fellow is so nice, why people are accusing this fellow or naming this fellow. So moment you handle theory nicely, it's going to be a very nice journey, very interesting. But if you're handling it badly, it is going to, literally it is going to make your life hell, because it will have because theories will have its typical nature. If you're not into it nicely, then it is going to actually spoil things. And since theory is going to be the backbone, like for us, if the backbone is going wrong, rest of the things are going to malfunction or not? Rest of the things are going to simply is going to be a real trouble. So that is going to be the foundation. That is going to support rest of the things. In fact, rest of the things are going to be easy, very easy. So when you talk about theory, it's not all 12 chapters. The 12 chapters, typical theoretical course is there in thinker, all these things. Few, accountability, control, these are few important chapters are there. All the chapters are important. You need to be thorough with those if you want to score really good marks. But you need to be extremely careful when you are actually dealing with theory. In the first go itself, you need to understand it nicely. Subsequent to this, again, as I was referring, paper 2 is going to be what? About the Indian administration. Now see, the beauty of this optional paper is, let's say, you studied paper 1 nicely. You studied administrative theory, the paper 1 very nicely, and you did not touch paper 2. That means you did not even pick up anything from the entire paper 2 of 14 chapters. But you read your general studies very nicely. You went through your general studies very nicely, and you went to appear the paper, your main exam, you went and appeared for your main exam. Believe me, you are not going to leave a single question in your paper 2. Not a single question. You will not be leaving a single question in the paper 2, even if you have not touched paper 2, you only studied paper 1, but you studied with all sincerity entire general studies. All the 4 papers of your general studies you studied very nicely, went through it very nicely. Everything you have studied, you are very thorough with your all the papers there, did a good job, and you studied, let's say, hurriedly. You just appeared for prelims, you have cleared the prelims, and you are, let's say, working something, hypothetically I am referring, and you have very little time to prepare, and you prepared only the paper 1. But you are very good at your general studies, and you appeared for the paper. Not a single question you are going to leave, not a single question you are going to say, I did not know this. Not a single, I am literally saying not a single question. Because there you will be studying. Now, say the central government, let's say President, Prime Minister, all this Central Secretariat, Prime Minister's office, or the state government, Chief Minister, Governor, or number of these things, or district administration, or law and order, the internal security, policing, police reform, or various issues, public sector undertaking, number of these things you are going to study, which in one way or other you are going to study all those while you are going to read the general studies. But if you want to score really good in paper 2, because there are 2 papers, paper 1 and paper 2. Generally, when people come out of their exam hall, when they go and appear for the civil service, and when they come out of let's say the first part, paper 1, they appeared, when they come out, most of these people may not be that very happy, may not be. They might say, okay, I have done it, I did it and all this thing. When they come out of the exam hall after paper 2, they will be very much happy. Sab ho gaya. Written everything, nicely written, ye, wo. When the result is there and score is there, just the opposite reactions you will find. In paper 1, they will be scoring more, and rarely people will be having higher scores in paper 2. Most of the good scores will be there in paper 1. Almost everyone, with some exception, relatively, whether you have done badly, you have done good, nicely, whether you have scored well, you have not scored well. When you compare your paper 1 and paper 2, relatively your score in paper 1 will be more as compared to your score in paper 2. But see, when you are appearing for the exam and you came out of the exam hall, the very feeling with which you come out, it was something contrary to what the marks would say. The reason being, in theory, say here, at times you find, even if, because in such type of exam, in a very competitive exam, even if one question you are going to compromise, you feel sad or not, because it's a competition. For you, it is a competition of your life. You want to make a career out of it. Even if some way you feel this question I did not know very nicely, did very nicely, you have some sort of a compromised feeling. But in paper 2, rarely you will have that feeling. You see, okay, Panchayati Raj, urban municipality, public sector, or let's say president, or corporate governance, regulatory institutions. Each one of these questions, multiple times you already studied in your general studies or in the paper 2 itself in Indian administration. So you will come out with the feeling that I addressed all the questions, almost everything that I knew, wrote it. But you need to be careful on this account. Here there is an advantage, there is a disadvantage. See, in paper 2 what actually happens is, almost every student who are in the race, not about the students who are not in the race, they write almost the same stuff. You take up X answer, Y answer, Z answer, A, B, C, D, E, F. All these answers, by and large, in terms of content and presentation, will be the same. That is why, even because that's what we studied. We studied 5, wrote 5, came out very nicely, and we thought we have done it well. So in that, not necessarily you get a good mark, because first of all, the point of making a difference is not present. You will find few students in paper 2, they did well and exceptionally well. You'll find, you'll also see that a few students, most of the students, if you think, okay, in the paper 2, if they have scored somewhere around, even if a good score overall, but they have scored 112, 115, 100, here 160, 170, even 180. Here you'll find few exceptional students, and they might have gone something around even near to 190, 200. Because the moment you make small difference is going to be reciprocated by your examiner. Why? Because most of the students are writing the same. With some nice presentation, with some extra thing, you will be rewarded disproportionately. You're going to be rewarded disproportionately. In paper 1, your clarity of presentation is going to attract a lot of marks. In paper 1, people will have, let's say, facts and knowledge, those who are in race. 10 are appearing, out of this, 4 will be actually in the race for good marks and selection. All these 4 people, among these 4 people, 2 who will be getting good marks in paper 1, they'll be getting these good marks based on clarity of presentation, the systematization of presentation, the accuracy of presentation, not some extra presentation. I hope I'm making sense to all of you. And these are going to help you in a future preparation. It's not merely that I'm sharing, okay, the initial class. These are some fundamental things that you should carry in your mind. In paper 1, the main point of difference in terms of marks is going to flow from where? The clarity, accuracy of presentation. Because that will show to what extent in this theoretical paper you have been able to understand things. In paper 2, not only your coherence of presentation, but some qualitative things. Qualitative things means some extra analysis, some extra case studies, some extra examples, some extra arguments. These are going to fetch you that extra marks that you're aiming at to make your overall mark look bigger. Let me repeat this. In paper 1, people who are getting really good marks, they'll be getting good marks not because they're adding material or adding something extra to the quantum of presentation. You will get good marks based on what? The accuracy of your presentation, because in theory, even if you have read X, Y, Z, you have to be more accurate. Question is asking something. You have to be very accurate to that question. If it is asking whether there is an auto on the road, you don't have to explain auto has 3 wheels and all this. You have to be very accurate, whatever the question. It's a very simple. I'm giving an example to make you understand. In theory, many a time, people are not able to understand the theme of the question. So in paper 1, you get good marks based on the clarity and accuracy of your presentation. So that makes the point of difference. You'll find your friend and you knew the same thing. Your friend got, let's say, 140 and you got 170, or just the reverse. Your friend got 170 in that paper, you got 140, or another friend of yours might have got 190. And when you compare, I got 140, that fellow has got 190, that's a huge mark difference of 50 marks. So immediately for you, if you get to hear, okay, this fellow has got, one of my seniors, this has got 140 and this fellow has got 190, you will generally ask whom? 190, thinking that, oh, he's an expert in this particular paper and this fellow is not. At the end of the day, you'll find both of them know the same things. And the 141 will think, almost the same thing we studied, same thing we know, we every day discuss, and many a time I have also taught him few things. UPSC is something very accidental. No, it is not so. I find UPSC is very responsible, at least in this evaluation. Very responsible. Here the point of difference is not what you have presented, how you have presented. How you have presented is very important. Paper 1, always remember the clarity is going to matter the most. So accuracy and clarity of presentation is going to fetch you the marks that you're looking at. If you want to score really very, very enviable score, in paper 1 you should be looking for what? The clarity. And while you are presenting, the accuracy. In paper 2, things are not going to be difficult. And things are going to be immensely difficult. Things are not going to be difficult, and things are going to be immensely difficult. Why? See, in paper 1, things are defined. Few additional things, because see, nothing in the world of knowledge, nothing is defined. But for our purpose of the UPSC, whatever the topics are there, for this, whatever we want to study is there. It is manageable, it's there, it is, I will be teaching that, I will be fetching from additional sources, teaching that, that's all, it's going to be all. But in paper 2, it is wide, it is extensive. On state government, huge material is there. On rural development, huge material is there. Urban development, huge material is there. On various issues of administration, huge material is there. You cannot have from single source all these things. Every day new things are coming. So paper 2 is easy as well as very difficult. Why easy? As I told, even if you don't read at all, simply leave the entire paper and go and appear, you are not going to miss a single question. That very average mark you are going to get, or you might get even above average with a good presentation. But if you want to score exceptionally high in paper 2, as I would say, in paper 2 scoring exceptionally high is easier because almost all 9 out of 10 are going to write the same stuff. Same, ditto. You just also, when the test will be there, your scripts will be there, do take effort to go through the scripts. Yourself will realize. Many a time it will be a good exercise to read other script. You'll find how similarly you people write, at least in paper 2. There will be hardly one copy out of this 10 who will be writing where you will appreciate, okay, something new is there. And new means not new. You have been asked, let's say, on, as I told, rural development, and you are writing something on corporate governance. That not new I am talking about. Something new but relevant to the question. So that will make huge difference. So if you want to score good in paper 2, see, we'll take our effort, we'll try our level best to be good in paper 2, to provide you a very comprehensive understanding on paper 2. But at the same time, having said so, I will also say, see, always remember, paper 2 is an open world. Paper 2 is an open world. You should always have your own, something like a register or something like that. When you're reading newspaper, you'll be reading magazines, you'll be accessing some material, wherever you find a nice case study, an example, a new argument, immediately write in that. If you have, let's say, in rural development, you have a topic, accordingly you maintain, subsequently you'll be developing that habit. One section, let's say you have women empowerment under Panchayati Raj institutions. Let's say, for example, under that you got a case study from Yojana. Right? Don't actually, again, another thing, don't keep that article. Summarize that article in 2-3 lines, 2-3-4 lines, only the gist, write it there. So as to be represent, use that when the exam is there or something like that. So paper 1 and paper 2, another thing I would say, public administration has a small theoretical core. Moment you are able to handle that theoretical core, moment you are able to understand that theoretical core, rest of the paper is going to be simply easy. It is going to be a cakewalk. But having said so, I would say that you should also understand the very principle, the very foundation of scoring good marks in paper 1 and paper 2. In paper 1, you get really good marks for the accuracy, the clarity of your presentation. If you're simply writing, because you read something and wrote, okay, I have written all these things, you might get very mediocre marks. You may not be able to understand why this marks has been given. In paper 1, precisely your the accuracy with which you have actually hit at the intention of the question, the clarity with which you have presented, that is going to be appreciated and given marks. In paper 2, not only the coherence is going to matter, but at the same time, the let's say some additional arguments or these qualitative inputs you have given, that is going to bring about the point of difference in your marks from that of others. Okay? So this is some basic things I wanted to bring before you. So few more things also I will be sharing, but in the due course of interaction. So anyone who is interested to ask some question, please ask. Please, just start. Things will follow after that. Someone wants to start. Please ask. So no questions? Sab clear ho? Each one of you are very clear on everything?
Sir, generally, what is the highest score that we see in public administration?
Okay. Dekho. He is asking what is the highest score or the higher scores in public administration that we see or witness. See, it depends on, because it varies from year to year, depends on the nature of marking of that particular year, because at times initially when this pattern changed, 200 plus used to be some good score. So anybody in optional getting 200 plus used to be very much appreciated. Then 250 plus used to be somewhat a benchmark. If you're somewhere around 250, really good, exceptional score. But if you take into account, let's say 2016, 17, that the period, 300 plus. So people, there are almost a few people used to get 300 plus marks. If you go by recent, couple of years, say 260 plus is really good marks. 270, 280, that's really exceptional marks. So that varies from year to year. So similarly, in public administration, there has been number of scores in excess of 300. This year also there has been scores in the range of that very, what you say, bracket, 270, 280. There has been number of scores. So I would say, don't fix your marks. Fix your preparation. So that whatever is going to be the highest mark, you should be either the same, you should be the highest or near to the highest. Because if you aim at 300 plus, that's nothing you can, because that privilege belongs to UPSC. They will be giving in optional papers 300 or not, or they will be restricting it to 250 plus or something like that. That's the privilege that belongs to UPSC. Your privilege is all about preparing hard, nicely, and aiming for whatever maximum marks that is UPSC is giving, that should be you. So it varies from year to year, and it is similarly the same. The years when it went beyond 300, we have plenty of marks in excess of 300. year in which it was 250 plus, we had also similarly. Okay. Yes. Nothing else?
So in various toppers talks, they mention about interlinking paper 1 and paper 2. What does that actually mean?
देखो, linking paper 1 with paper 2. There are two things. One, if you take into account this particular examination, civil service exam, is it an academic exam? No. It is an exam that is meant to select candidates for occupying various positions of administration. Okay? So its nature has to be different, because this exam is a medium to understand that which of these candidates have the necessary aptitude and the attitude that is suitable for the assignment they are going to handle. That is why in academic exam, whatever we are expecting here, that might be a different expectation, because this exam is not trying to understand only your knowledge in that academic field, but it's also something else beyond that. So one thing that will be very much appreciated is to what extent you are able to understand, what extent you are able to use it. So in this also, in this optional paper also, because theory paper, moment you say theory, what is a theory? What do you understand by a theory? When you say theory, what do you understand by a theory? All of you have, whatever of academic background you have, each one of you must have gone through theory. So what is a theory?
The framework of doing something.
Framework of?
Executing something.
Achha, framework of executing something. Okay?
Some principles.
Huh?
With some principles.
Okay, with some a set of principles. Okay, it is you are giving me an academic answer. Fine. Okay, something that is already proven. Okay, academically, theory is a body of knowledge. It is a body of knowledge, or moreover, it's an established body of knowledge that helps us to understand the cause and consequence relationship. And this is what is established through principles. Principles are nothing but that providing us what? This cause leading to this consequence. So a body of related knowledge, theoretically, academically, that helps us to understand the cause and consequence relationship. But see, leave aside this academic understanding. I would say theory is nothing but a looking glass that helps us to understand the reality better, or certain situation or certain things better. So that's why in our case, paper 1 is theory. Theory on what? Administration. What is administration? All these things we'll learn later on. Roughly, for the time being, we understand administration is something government, all these things. Whatever normally you understand, we'll come to that later on. So when you say paper 1 is a theory, this means what? It is something, a body of knowledge that helps us to understand administration, that helps us to understand the causes and consequences in administration. That's what we can say. And what is paper 2? Paper 2 is Indian administration. So if you are able to apply, let's say, paper 1 with paper 2, that speaks volume about what? Your understanding. You're having a mind over your shoulder. That explains a lot that you are not a byproduct of a rote method. You have a thinking mind. See, this pattern was changed based on the recommendation of a number of committees and commissions. If I have to refer to your second Administrative Reform Commission, there are some very critical observation relating to the nature of candidates being selected by the UPSC. In fact, the training academy, along with the committee itself, felt that the candidates, those being selected, are the byproduct of the rote method. Rote method means mugging, going, reproducing, getting selected. They do not have a head over their shoulder. That's symbolically referring to what? They do not have a thinking, analytical mind. So they wanted, you need to understand these things. What is the expectation through this exam? They recommended that the entire pattern should be reorganized. It should be so devised that we are able to get which type of people? People having head over the shoulder. That means what? People who are able to think, analyze, understand. So they don't want people with simply mugging things, going there, writing things and getting through. So that means here, if you are able to apply paper 1 in paper 2 or vice versa, it is going to be well appreciated, because this is one of the requirement of the UPSC, that they want people who are having a thinking mind, an analytical mind, a mind that is capable of applying the knowledge that the individual has consumed. But having said so, I'm saying this is appreciated, but having said so, don't strive too much to develop this character. Moment you are able to understand paper 1 nicely, paper 2 nicely, then you take up this effort, automatically it is going to flow. Moment you are able to understand the theories that we are going to study, and moment in that context you started studying, let's say, district administration, or let's say federalism, or for that matter, let's say public sector units, automatically you'll be able to understand that why, let's say, what type of federal system we are having, or what type of district administration, if at all district administration is failing, why it is failing. Or let's say, if you're talking about rural administration, local panchayats, urban municipalities, you'll be able to understand why it is so. You'll have plenty of opportunities to interrelate and apply, and don't try to, if you're writing 20 questions, don't try to this interrelate in all 20. That tendency may not actually bear fruit. Because many a time with this tendency, we might move away from the requirements of the question. I've witnessed, while going through the answer scripts, I've witnessed people with their enthusiasm of applying paper 1 into paper 2, paper 2 into paper 1, they do a lot of irrelevant activities. Application is required, but it should be applied in a relevant way. But moment we think we have to apply, we take all our effort to actually introduce here, there, everywhere, and because we see whatever, even if you think I have understood very well, but see, knowledge is always something endless. Your mastery, your level of mastery will not be actual that level of mastery required for so much of interrelatedness or application and all these things. So wherever you are very sure, in the class itself it will be taken up accordingly. But wherever you are very sure, you actually do that. Out of, let's say, 20 answers you are writing, even if you are doing that in 5, 6, 7, that is plenty, that's enough, that's adequate to communicate that you are actually a worthy student. That can be attended with. Okay? So it is going to be useful. It is good that you apply paper 1 in paper 2 with paper 1, but that you will develop with understanding. Second, practice. You have to understand very nicely, then you have to go for practicing. That automatically will come. And at the same time, don't try to apply everywhere. Only apply that wherever it is required, wherever you are very sure. Okay? So anything else? I think in an indirect way I explained that, to what extent this optional paper overlaps with the general studies. In a different way I referred, if you read all the papers of general studies, not a single question in paper 2 you are going to leave. But having said so, let me say, if you take into account your paper 2, say what is the title of the paper 2? Many a time we don't go into the specifics of this. What is the title of paper 2? Constitution, polity, governance. Have you ever pondered over these terms? What is this? See, Constitution is the document, that supreme document that governs our system, the mother law of our country. We refer it as what? Constitution. That very written document is the Constitution. So that document and its interpretation is what we are referring to as Constitution. So let's say fundamental rights are there. In that fundamental rights, there are certain interpretation is there, certain judgments are there with all the parts of the interpretation. So that document and its interpretation is what is we are referring to as Constitution. The application of the Constitution in reality, like let's say we have a right to equality. To what extent we have equality? To what extent we have social equality? To what extent we have economic equality? To what extent we have political equality? That is what is polity. And there are mechanisms to operationalize the Constitution. That machinery, that mechanism, that arrangement that operationalizes the Constitution, its values, its ethos, is what is being referred to as governance. Okay? Generally in GS we study Constitution, to a very limited extent polity. We ignore polity and governance. Whatever we generally study, whatever I get to see, we don't go for polity and governance. We typically get restricted to Constitution and with a very limited extent to polity, with a complete exception to the polity and the governance. That is why if you take into account the nature of questions, few things are there, which is from moment it is from polity and typically governance section, there is some trouble. Some aspect of governance we take up through, let's say, structures and all these things we take up. In public administration, we'll be dealing with polity and governance. We'll not be dealing with Constitution. Although without Constitution there is polity and governance is simply we cannot go ahead with it. But in our class we will be having restriction, time limit and all these things. So we will not be teaching Constitution. So if you take into account your Constitution, polity, governance, if you take into account the topics there and topics that we have, at least here it is complete overlap. Not only this, if you take into account your developmental economics, number of those persons of budgeting, different budget, taxation, some part of tax, accounting, few of these disaster management, number of these things are there that you'll be studying here, regulatory institutions, all this, it will be, we'll be having here, public-private partnership, number of these developmental economics part, you'll be studying here. And paper 4, ethics, integrity and all this, number of things, actually the foundational aspects, typical theories that thinkers and all this thing here you will not have, but most of this, a substantial portion of that you will be studying here. Whether those right to information, right to public services, or let's say citizen charter, number of things, a lot of those governance and all these things that is there, number of those things you will be studying here. So a huge quantum will be there that will be overlapping. In fact, I would say, see, another important or significant, another beauty of this optional paper is that if you're able to go through this nicely, Prepare it nicely. The best part of this optional paper is during your exam paper you can revise it faster. So this paper is not going to contribute for you in terms of the marks that you are going to get directly in this paper. Because since this paper you can cover in a limited period of time, it is going to release a lot of time for your other papers. This is a hidden benefit that will always be there. That is what we can say a calculable benefit, and this is something that is not taken into calculation. So if you want to really take advantage of this optional paper, read it very nicely to begin with, because the most of the time that is consumed in this paper is the theory. Rest are going to consume less time. So once you are thorough with this paper, revision is going to be very fast, very easy. It is going to consume very less time. So if you want to, as I will repeat, if you want to take real advantage of this optional paper, in this you should prepare it nicely in the beginning, because it is going to consume less time for revision. It will release a lot of time for the preparation of your essay, general studies and all these things. Okay? You want to talk something? No, someone? Huh.
So that the subject, the application of the subject is very dynamic. And whenever we study the case studies and the examples, they are written from a certain perspective. Certain people write it. And their views also differ. So how to deduct a rational thought from it?
Okay, I got it. She is trying to ask that in number of questions, let me paraphrase your question first. In number of questions, maybe we have to share our opinion, and while presenting our answer, we might take a stand. Might have to take a stand, or we might have to present an argument, and it might be liked or may not be liked by the one who is evaluating the paper. So how to go about writing our answer so that this difficulty would not be there? That is what you want to ask. See, first of all, don't worry. See, I believe that whoever going to evaluate the paper, they are not going to be so much opinionated. They are going to be very learned, very experienced. They are going to be having a very long experience in academic teaching in universities. So whenever you write something, if you are writing that with sufficient, what you can say, relevance, sufficient argument, reasonable argument, irrespective of the fact that the individual who is evaluating may not fully agree with you, is not going to dismiss, because they understand this can be an argument, this can be a stand. This is one, I would say. So without any fear, you write your answers, but while you are writing your answers, provide sufficient argument to justify whatever you write. That way, no examiner with a sane mind is going to deduct any mark. Second, as you will progress with your preparation, as you are going to develop understanding on variety of topics, you automatically will get to know which part is more acceptable and which part is less acceptable, and how we are going to conclude, and in that which stand is going to be more reasonable. So this part you don't worry. So moment you will start your preparation, and when you will be mastering on these various topics, you will automatically get to know the manner you have to present. So don't worry about this. Because there will be questions where it will be asked comment or give your opinion. So that will be questions. So there you have to share your view. So in that, don't worry. You are not going to face any trouble on this. Okay. So as I told in the initial few classes, all of you will be, we are not going to touch any topic as such, but following this class, you will be gradually initiated into some type of discussion that is going to be helping you to understand the initial topics we are going to take up, because to begin with, we are going to have certain topics from theory and all this. So that's supposedly the toughest part, but I will believe, I have a firm belief that's not so. It is the most interesting. That's going to build the foundation for all of us. It's going to be interesting, and all of you are going to understand it nicely. So we'll be starting with the theory, but prior to that, we'll be introducing you people to certain terms, certain discussion, so that the required malleability in your mind is created. Prior to that, I will say that as far as the textbooks, don't collect a large number of textbooks. Don't go to the shopkeeper and announce that I have taken public administration as my optional paper. So immediately there will be a huge load of books that will be presented to you. Don't. So don't have this habit of collecting the huge number of material text, whether articles or textbooks. It might be, in fact, counterproductive. So few textbooks you do collect. It's good to read textbook at times. You will get a knack of it. So in paper 1, you get hold of, if you want to write, you write. In paper 1, you get, see, I'm saying get, not start reading. Okay? I'll be particular, don't start reading these books. First, you get this book, New Horizon of Public Administration by Mohit Bhattacharya. New Horizon of Public Administration by Mohit Bhattacharya. Second, you get either of these two books, either, not both. Administrative Thinker by Prasad and Prasad, or Administrative Theory and Management by R.K. Arora. Sorry, R.K. Sapru. At times something that is very simple and most of the time you refer, you tend to forget. R.K. Sapru has written a lot of books. He has written public policy on, so this is Administrative Theory and Management by R.K. Sapru. Either of these two books, I will repeat, not both. If you are getting hold of Prasad and Prasad, then don't go for the other one. If you are getting hold of the Administrative Theory and Management by Sapru, don't go for Prasad and Prasad. If you are getting, let's say, both the textbook, prefer the Sapru. Prefer the Sapru. The language, coverage, everything is good in this Sapru. Okay? One more text, I'm saying get, okay? Don't start reading. I will repeat this. Another book, Public Administration by S. Paulinaidu. S. Paulinaidu. Okay? For paper 2, Indian Administration by Arora and Goyal. Indian Administration by Arora and Goyal. And the second one is Public Administration in India by Rumki Vasu. And take the latest edition of this. This is a very nice book on Indian administration, very recently published. Go for it. Public Administration in India by Rumki Vasu. Rumki, R-U-M-K-I, Rumki Vasu. And many a time I am also asked about this book, both paper 1 and paper 2, written by Radha Binod Aribam. Okay? So in fact, this is written by my student, that Radha Binod Aribam. He is the 2010 IAS Manipur cadre. And in fact, that text is my class note of 2010 itself. So if you want to go for that, you can go for that. Both paper 1 and paper 2. That is in fact my class note that is reproduced. So that's why the foreword is written by me itself. So if you want to go for that, you can go. If you don't, you don't go. Okay? Because many a time I'm asked whether we should go for this because it is recommended here, it is recommended there. So you can go for this, but I need to share that it is nothing but our class note of 2010 that is nicely compiled by Aribam, and it is published by this KBC, Kumar Book Depot, and basically that's a class note of 2010. Okay? So this is the number of books you should be getting. Don't go for books more than this. Okay? In between we will be referring to some portion of some books, if at all we refer, and not necessarily the entire these 5 books you have to read. Again, you don't have to read the whole of these books. Few of these portions you might have to read later on. You have to be very much dependent on your class notes. Whatever you are going to write in the class, that should be your primary material. That should be your primary material. These textbooks can supplement at times. Few chapters of this you can read. Later on you will get to know which chapters you have to go through. Okay? So that's why don't start reading all these things. You don't have to read cover to cover all these textbooks. So no need to go for this. So in the class notes that you are going to write in the class, that should be the basic study material for you. And even if you will be provided with the literature from the institute itself, study material will be provided for all these chapters. You will be getting study material. Again, having said so, also I would say that not necessarily all those study material also you have to go through, because all this in the class, not only these sources, but more than these sources, we will be reading and teaching you. So you have to be very careful in the class. You have to write in detail, and that class notes should be the basis for your revision and everything that you are going to do while appearing for your exam. Okay? As far as the literature that you have to have, as far as textbooks that you have to purchase, this is what. Don't go beyond this. Don't waste your money. Don't go for getting hold of a large number of books. Have only this much. Okay? And few people also ask about IGNOU material. That also you need not actually go for IGNOU material. Few areas of IGNOU, in fact, post-graduation material, MPA, that's coded, MPA, Masters in Public Administration. There are few literature in that can be useful. You can read, but don't go for the entire material. If someone of you have this IGNOU material, you come to me. I will take which portions or which topics you can read. Or if you are not having it, don't worry. You're not going to lose anything. Okay? Pardon? that's what I'm saying, the literature that you're going to get from here, not necessarily you have to read that fully. Because see, if we are not going to give you study material, many a time the students think nothing is given. I will be brutally honest. So not necessarily whatever is given you have to read everything. That you should not compromise anything that is delivered in the class. Okay? And as far as the supportive literature is concerned, whatever is given to you, you will in the due course of time will become intelligent, will find, okay, this one I have to study and this I've simply skipped. All right, no? Most of those you'll find everything is taught. You did not go through that. Okay? So, and again, even if the literature, that, this textbook that I'm referring, hardly any topic you have to go through from this textbook. Most of those you'll find you're not going through, and very little of that you will go through. And one more thing, let me also share before you disperse for the day. As far as the class note is concerned, see, in class note, you spare both the side for your, that means spare means you write only in the middle of the page, and some substantial portion you leave on both the side. Why I'm saying, because later on, let's say you got some case study, you found it's useful in this particular topic. You got some new argument that you thought this is related to this. I want for all of you a single source that you're going to study while you're appearing for your exam. You're, let's say, going through any of this textbook and you thought, okay, this is something possibly the sir has skipped. And you do not underline there and keep it there. You should simply pick it up and write in the designated, let's say, space. So that when you're appearing for the exam, you're not cruising through 1, 2, 3 and you're trying to place it in your brain only. It has to be physically placed in a single source, and so that that single source becomes the base for your revision and everything. So in your preparation, one source should be your basic source. That should be your class note. Whatever you are going to read, all that you find useful, you have to write in this vacant space that you are going to leave now while writing your class note. Okay? So that later on, you don't have to create another register to write, okay, this is useful in this topic or useful in that topic, because that becomes chaotic. And in that hurry, you tend to leave something and ultimately it's not used in your exam. So that is why in a single space, all this has to be written. So while you're writing, leave good amount of space on both sides, right in the middle of the page, and have separate register for paper 1 and paper 2. That automatically all of you will be having. Okay? One exercise all of you try doing, it is going to immensely help all of you, because you in civil service, your presentation is going to be an unmatched quality. Your presentation is going to be an unmatched quality. Most of the students who are getting through, they not only learn things nicely, but they have the ability to present it nicely. Why I'm saying so? Because say today, in a single general studies paper, how many questions you have? You have to write roughly around 20. I'm referring. All the 4, 80. So with the same type of stuff you're writing and your friend is writing, you might get different marks. Same. In terms of quality, in terms of quantity, it might be the same. But with a simply good presentation, examiner will not hesitate to assign additional marks. When you will read your scripts, you yourself will get to know. It is not difficult to fetch 1 extra mark or even more than 1 extra mark in a single answer with the same time, same amount of stuff. If you are getting one extra mark in one question, say 80. Moderately I am talking about this. 80 questions, 80 extra marks with the same knowledge that you have. Essay is all about presentation and creativity. Huge marks you are getting. Your optional paper, most of the people who are going to compete and get through, they are going to be from social science. They are from, let's say, some physical science, applied science, but bulk of them are going from where? Not with the background with the social science. Optional paper with which they are going to qualify, bulk of them are going from the social science. And in social science, almost all the social science paper, you need good presentation. So there almost another 40 marks. I'm modest calculation I'm talking about, roughly around 150 marks. Whatever you know with that only, that amount of knowledge, same amount of knowledge, the variation of your marks is going to be in the range of 150 to 200 marks. Just imagine, with this variation, you might be the topper and you might be simply out of the list. And how do we rate people? Oh, topper means itna bada sir hai, knowing so much, and this fellow not in the list. At the end of the day, if you try to understand, actually you might find hardly any difference between the two. And maybe today the point of difference is actually presentation, unlike previous. So before this pattern was changed, when I was appearing, see, we used to remember in optional paper, in general studies paper, in 2.5 hours we used to finish the paper, half an hour, 15 minutes, 20 minutes we used to revise. That used to be the situation. That's why this recommendation, we don't want students or candidates with rote method. Plenty of time. Read the question, remembered kya likhna hai, aram se. You can write. Because 3 long questions we have to write, 6 short questions we have to write, and then we used to have plenty of choices. Out of 8 short questions, we have to write 6. Out of 6 long questions, we have to write 3. Plenty of choices. And when you have to write less number of questions, so you have time to think. And once you have thought about it, you go on writing. But today, you have very limited choice. And plenty of questions you have to write. And today, do you hear a student who is a serious candidate for the selection, do you hear a student who say, I completed my paper, leave about revising? Or mostly you will find, I did not complete, I left 20 marks. Another thing, I left 25 marks. Another fellow saying, I knew those 3 questions, but I have to rush. Not a single student you will find who will say, I comfortably finished, leave about revising. Why? Deliberately this pattern has been changed. Because in this, what will happen? You will not find time. Start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. What is crystallized, that is what is going to come out. And in this, the thing that is going to matter the most is presentation. How we are going to assimilate and present. That is going to matter the most. And that is why with presentation only, with an average understanding, with good presentation, you are going to make the cut. You are going to make to the list. You are going to be a civil servant. Finally make to the list. So that is why one exercise I will suggest, if at all you are able to do, please do it. For your sake you do it. That will be useful not only in our paper, it will be useful in general. All of you are getting newspaper? All of you are getting newspaper? Yes. All of us are getting newspaper. How many of you are reading? Nowadays possibly, because you have taken a hard choice, prepare for the UPSC, have to read. See, do one thing. After you finished reading, if you are able to manage, please do it. It's going to help you immensely. For initial 3 months or 4 months, choose 2 topics of your choice. Choose any 2 topics, randomly choose any 2 topics of your choice. Have a separate register. Exclusively for this exercise, have a separate register. For each topic, write 50 words, not more than 50 words. Writing a lot is easy, writing less is difficult. Write these 50 words about one topic that you have chosen, another 50 words for another topic that you have chosen in your own language. Don't look into the newspaper. Once you've stopped reading, randomly choose and write. Once you've written it, go through your lines. And while going through the lines, you refer the newspaper. While reading the newspaper, don't skip any word, don't presume the meaning of any word, because see, most of the time while reading we tend to presume. So even if you have to refer 5th time the dictionary for a single word, because we have referred already twice, still forget, and then maybe for the 3rd time we might be feeling ashamed. Even if you have to refer 5 times, 6 times, 10 times, don't skip that word, don't presume the meaning, do refer. That is why keep some dictionary that is handy, maybe a pocket dictionary, so that bulky one, if it is somewhat away or something like that, you tend to baad mein dekhunga. So refer every terms, do try to understand the meaning, and while writing, don't be bombastic or very jargonist. Your writing should not be using a lot of jargons, so don't be either Sidhu or Tharoor. We want simple, because simple English is good English. I am not saying Tharoor has, because he falls into a different category. Good English, at the same time, difficult to understand. Another fellow, no comments. So simple English is good English. So not necessarily, I'm saying refer every word, so you have to write all those words every time. But you need to understand everything with accuracy. The moment you refer to those words, your accuracy, your understanding, your sharpness of understanding of things will increase. That's why you should not be skipping, you should not be assuming the meaning. While writing, you write with simplicity, with clarity. So that is why you read it again. After you have finished writing, read it again. You will find you are not liking your own words, your own sentences. At that time, refer to the newspaper again. Wherever you want to rectify it. After that, if you have your parents, friends, or anybody who is ready to help, allow them to read and give you suggestions. Continue this for, let's say, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. After that, you can change slightly your strategy. See, same two, you write with 50 words or 60 words, 50, 60, that should be not more than that. But now you do one thing, one randomly you select. One, you select specific, with some specific reference. Like let's say, Monday, you can think, okay, on this day, I will write something on sports. Or Tuesday, I will choose something from international. Or Wednesday, I will choose something from another section. In this way, you divide. Do this exercise for another, let's say, a month, 2 or 3. And during this period, you do one thing. Try to reproduce only what is that in the newspaper. Don't write something extra. Okay? So whatever there in the newspaper, try to reproduce it. See, by this 5 months, 6 months or 7 months time, whenever doing this and you're preparing your exam for your exam, during this period you must have developed understanding on various topics. That will be a different scenario then. By that time, it will be a different scenario, because now if you have to talk about, let's say, Indo-China relationship, many things you don't know, or global geopolitics, many things you don't know. So that is why by that time, many things you have started acquiring your understanding. If you want to talk about panchayat, you know few things. So after this 6 months or 7 months time, what you can do, again choose two. Always choose one from the editorial and another from these different sections. Okay? Now always one from the editorial section and another from this way, whatever international this choose. But this time what you do, when you are writing, increase the space to something 75, 80 words or 100 words, even 100 words. Now what you can do, not only reproduce, but start adding. Because now you have started developing your views. So start adding to those writing. So this exercise I would like you people to do. And see, there is no formula for better presentation. Many a time people say, okay, sir, how can there be a better presentation? So this formulaic presentation is there in the hardcore business market. You follow X, Y, Z, you get magical results. There is no magical results. You have to learn things in a hard way. So if you want good presentation, as I have a firm belief, today in civil service, 9 out of 10 are getting through presentation, not merely presentation, they have a good understanding. But if 50 are having good understanding, out of that 10 are qualifying, those 10, out of those 10, one might be an exception, but 9 are those who are having good ability to present. So that is why if you are actually serious, I want to see myself a civil servant in this coming year. Okay? Be very much specific on presentation. Don't only read, because our habit is to read and we think, पहले सर इतना बड़ा हो जाए उसके बाद मैं लिखूंगा. It will never happen. While you are reading, write your normal academic stuff, and this additional exercise that I'm saying, it's going to consume time, it's going to be irritating, it's going to be very burdensome, but if you are able to do it, believe me, it is going to give you something immeasurable benefit, because it will have effect on multiple account. Not only it is going to finish your presentation, it's going to redefine your way of approaching things, your ability to understand, and at the same time, your grasp of things are going to simply widen if you're able to do this. So start right away, and please do. I will request all of you here, all those who are online, I will request all of you to go through this exercise on a regular basis, on a very disciplined basis. Okay? So this is today we had a very simple, very casual interactive session. In the coming days, we'll be taking up more questions and all these things, but from tomorrow onwards, it will not be interaction, rather orientation sessions. You'll be introduced into certain terms or certain understandings, but nothing academic will be taken up right away. And tomorrow's session will be taken up by Ashutosh sir. Okay? Ashutosh will be taking up tomorrow's session. So if you have any question, please ask. Any more question anyone would like to ask? Okay, chalo. So thank you all. Sorry, thank you all. So we'll be meeting tomorrow, and as I would request all of you that the textbook that I have referred, you can get those textbooks, but don't read any of those textbooks right away. Okay? Specifically because many a time people might be somewhat amused. Okay, teachers generally say read something and come to the class. Since I will be starting with the theory, to begin with. So I would request all of you not to read anything, because the moment you start reading, you might start developing a slightly distorted understanding. So when we are going to teach, you'll try to understand through that lens. It is going to make things difficult. So for initial month, you don't read anything and come to the class. So whatever you will be taught in the class, you try to understand that nicely, clarify everything, go back and read. After that, things might be different. Okay? So moment you get this textbook, don't start reading. Chalo, thank you. Most welcome. And just a moment. I have been asked one more thing. Acha, one more exercise you're going to do. Simply write down a question, write a small note, something in 100 words, and send it on this, so that for certain purpose it is required, it will be evaluated. Simply write in 100 words on what do you understand by government. What do you understand by, within apostrophe, government? Okay. And initial couple of classes you will have from 4 o'clock till 6 o'clock, and after that you will have classes from 4 o'clock till 6:30. Okay. After this initial 15 to 20 classes, your class timing will be 4 to 6:30, but initially it will be from 4 to 6 o'clock. Okay. Yes. By tomorrow before the class.